Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of A Year in Cards. This is for October 2009. It's class 10 and it's gratitude and autumn cards. For these cards I'm going to be using some pattern paper, and it's from Basic Gray's Indian Summer collection. And I've cut down a lot of these pieces because I'm going off of sketches that I had previously done for this class. You can see the sketches over at twopeasinAbucket.com with this class, and you can also follow along with us. Make your own cards, upload them to the Two Peas Gallery, and you'll have a chance to win a gift certificate to the Two Peas in a Bucket store. So a really great way to get involved and make some cards and also have a chance to win some free stuff. So I started out with two pieces of pattern paper, and lighter pink one I just punched the edge with the scallop sentiment punch from Fiskars, and then I adhered it to the other piece of pattern paper, and now I'm putting it onto the card. This card base is a dark brown color. It's from American Crafts, and it can be found in quite a few of their cardstock packs actually. It's in their, let's see, earth tones, it's also in their neutrals, and it's also in their, I think it's their Christmas cardstock pack. I'm using a stamp set from Sassafras. This is from their Stitchery stamp set, and I'm using it with some Versamark ink so that I can emboss it with some white embossing powder. I have my embossing powder standing by so that I can quickly put it onto the stamped image. Just sprinkle it on and tap it with a spoon and with my finger, and then I'm ready to use the heat tool, and that will melt the embossing powder and it'll be really opaque and it will show up on this dark pattern paper. Now I'm adhering another piece of pattern paper to this white square. This square is cut to 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 with some pattern paper, and I'm going to do some stamping on it with this Technique Tuesday stamp set. I believe it's called Simply You, and it's one that Allie Edwards designed for them. So I love all of Allie Edwards stamps from Technique Tuesday, and this is actually one of the more inexpensive stamp sets because it's so small and it's perfect for cards. So it's a really great investment if you just want some sentiments that have a little bit of unique flair to them. I stamped that in a dark brown ink from Colorbox. I'm just cutting down that other piece. I'm going to adhere it behind the piece that I just put together. Okay, and then I'm going to start to, well, first I'm going to punch the corner, but then I'm going to start assembling sort of my embellishment area on this card, and I'm going to be using quite a few buttons. These buttons are from Basic Gray and also from Fancy Pants. The darker pink colors are from Fancy Pants, and the brown and pink are from Basic Gray's porcelain buttons. And I'm just adhering them to the card with some glue dots. That's the easiest adhesive to use when you're applying sort of heavier embellishments like buttons or flowers. The flower I'm using is from Making Memories. It's from one of their Buttons and Blossoms boxes. And after I have that all put together, I'm just going to be putting it on the card with some dimensional adhesive. I tend to use Stampin' Up! Stampin' Dimensionals, but you can use pop dots, you can use anything that has a little bit of dimension to it. There's one in each corner and one in the middle. That should hold it. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to do is just round the corners on the card with We Are Memory Keepers Corner Chomper. That's the company that also puts out the Crocodile. So this corner chomper is really sturdy. It's a great investment. Has two different sizes of corners for you. So there's card 1, and we're on to card 2. I'm also using the same color of cardstock for the base for this card. In fact, all 3 cards use that same dark brown color, except for this card, the front of it's going to be covered completely with this pattern paper from Basic Gray. I'm putting adhesive on all 4 sides and also a couple spots down the middle, and that's because I'm going to be cutting the front of the card a little bit, and I want to make sure that all the edges, no matter where I cut, are still going to stay on the card base. I'm going to be drawing a kind of a guideline on the inside of the card. I'm just putting my my wrist in that bottom corner, and then I'm using the natural rotation of my hand to draw a really smooth slope. Then I'll just use some scissors and cut that out. I'm doing this because I wanted to use some cardstock vellum that's been stamped. And so I wanted to sort of have a little corner peeking out, so, you know, to add some interest. I'm using this stamp set, or not stamp set, but stamp from Hero Arts with some Versamark ink and white embossing powder. And the trick to embossing on vellum is to not let the heat tool stay in one place for too long. I kind of keep it moving quite a bit, and I try to hold the vellum pretty straight. And after you're done, kind of bend it and bow it so that it'll cool without it warping too much. And that tends to help just a little bit. So now I'm just putting adhesive on the inside of the card. If you don't want to have the adhesive showing, you could actually cut the card base and then apply the vellum to the front of the card, and then put that pattern paper on top of it, and kind of sandwiching the vellum in between the pattern paper and the card base, and that'll make it so that the inside of the card is just brown. Okay, now I've got another piece of pattern paper I'm going to add to the front of this. It's just some pink pattern paper. In fact, it's the same pink that was used on the previous card. And just placing on the card to make sure it's kind of the right dimension that I want. And then I'll again use my pencil and draw a slope that matches the slope used on the other pattern paper. After I have that drawn in, I'll go ahead and trim it with some scissors. And then we'll set it aside for a minute while we stamp the sentiment using that same brown ink color and just on some white cardstock. And I wanted to punch the corner of this, but you can tell it's too small and it's not going into the corner of the guides on the corner chomper. So using just a little bit of adhesive that was left over on that strip from when I stamped it, I put it onto another piece of cardstock, kind of borrowed its corner so that I could round the corner on the piece that was too small. Now I just wrapped some ribbon around that pink piece, and I'm putting some faux stitching with some white gel pen, and I'll be adhering that to the card with some dimensional adhesive as well. Now after I have this attached to the card, I'll go ahead and put the dimensional adhesive on the white strip that has the sentiment on it, and I'll put that on the card as well. Just a few little corners to punch right here, and then that'll finish up the card. So card 2 is a little bit more involved with the larger embossing and the vellum, but super cute and great for to tell someone thank you or you love them. And now we're going to go on to card 3. Card 3 is a smaller card, and it's 3 by 3 inches. I'm using that same brown cardstock color, and I'm starting out by punching with the Threading Waters Fiskars punch on this orange pattern paper, and then I'm stamping the sentiment "You Make Me Smile" on that same pink paper. And I'm actually going to cut it down after I have it stamped because that square was a little too big. I'm adhering the orange pattern paper to the front of the card, trying to get it on there pretty straight, and then I'm going to go ahead and put on the sentiment that I stamped. And I'm going to be using the guidelines on my cutting mat here to make sure that I get it on straight and lining it up with the lines, and then that helps me to get the sentiment on there a little bit more straight. It's going to trim up the edges here. I waited to trim the orange piece until I had the pink one on there because I knew I need to trim both. Then I'm going to take a white gel pen, and instead of doing like stitching lines, I'm going to just do dots. And this was actually a little bit harder than I thought, especially being that that pink piece of paper is on dimensional, so it was sort of hard to judge how far away from that edge I was, but it turned out pretty okay, and it was a really good detail that, you know, it's not stitching. This is the collection pack for Indian Summer from Basic Gray, and it's just the cover that has all the miniature pieces of all the papers, and I thought it'd be really fun to go ahead and use that collection pack cover for a different use. And I'm cutting out that same pink pattern that I used on the first card, and I've turned it over and I've drawn a heart so that I can trim it out, and then I'll be adhering it to this small 3 by 3 card as well. After I have it cut out, I put it onto some white cardstock, and I'm cutting around that. I'm just giving a little bit of a white edge. That's because I put it up against the card, and against the pink, the darker magenta pink wasn't popping as much as I'd like, so I decided to put a little bit of white cardstock behind it. Putting that on with a Stampin' Dimensional, And that finishes up the card for the third card for this class for this month. Here are all the cards all together. Please join us over at 2Ps on the message boards and creating your own card and uploading it to the gallery. I'd love to see what all of you have done with the sketches, and I'll catch you guys next month. Thanks so much for watching.